Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon and today I'm giving you how to set up, play and review for the game 300, Earth and Water. This is by Nuts Publishing. It's by a designer who has made some other games before in a kind of a studio fashion. So basically behind a lots of a bit of a team making a game together before. And this is an asymmetrical two-player game. Now you may have checked out my preview, unboxing, overview video. I tend to do that to give you a bit more history about a game, but also something where you can find out a little bit of information about a game that is coming soon. So by all means, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to of course be notified when the next video is on its way. And at time of recording, there's been a video every day for about 7 months, and there's no sign of that stopping presently. So as you can see, I have a board here. You are going to be sat either this side or this side, depending on if you're playing as over here as the Persians, or over here as here is the Persians and here as the Greeks and the Spartans. So you may recall there's a film called 300, and it's about these 300 Spartans against the Persians. And yes, it's set very much historically. There's a whole information around it. It's very historical. And there are various events which actually occur from that time, which do occur in this as well. Now there's another game called Troy, which I also have, which is an asymmetrical two-player game. Very similar, and you might want to check that out on the channel. In addition to this video, you'll find that under the How to Set Up, Play and Review playlist. So check out that playlist, as well as the AmassGames playlist, and also the two-player playlist, amongst other things. So you can have your various pieces. I'll move this off to one side, and I'll just have the red player off to one side as well. So it's a game that happens in 5 phases, 5 campaigns, and the aim of the game is to be the winner. If there's a tie, then the tie just means there isn't a winner. There are going to be 16 cards, and some people think, oh, that's not many mini cards, but as you'll see, it's quite important why it's quite tight like that. As you can see, there's quite a few bags. Some games have very few bags, some have a little bit too many, and I can't see any other reason than to have these 2 marker pieces. So part of the setup, you're going to start on campaign 1, and this looks a bit odd for me presently because I played last time as the Persians, so where I was sat, it felt a bit different. So you're going to place another piece over here. So in the course of the game, you are looking to be victorious. You are looking to either defeat the Spartans as the Persians, or you're looking to defeat the Persians as the Spartans, and you're going to start off the game with certain setups. So presently, the Persians, I'm blue, Persians always start, are going to be in their 2 key cities, Abydos and Ephesus. So I'm not very good at pronouncing that, so apologies. Whereas the red player, that is the Spartans, the Greeks, they're going to start over here. And I'll just let you know that in the other video I did talk about the Spartans versus the Greeks. Of course, I was incorrect in that statement. So there is some currency in the game as well. And I'm just going to finish doing the setup. So these represent armies. Each one represents an army, and an army represents a die. You're going to have a maximum of 3 dice per battle. So if you have more than 3 armies, you're only going to be rolling 3 dice. And that's with combat, which I'll come on to in a moment. So aside from that, you're also going to set up the last part of your bit over here, your basically cities that you're in. These are major cities, these are minor cities. And lastly, you're going to lay out some fleets. So it turns out that the Persians, the Greeks, the red player, I might call it that, happen to start in certain locations as well. So as I said, it's going to be the Persians who start. They're instigating that fight. They start off with a pontoon piece, and as you might see, I do have some pieces just out of shot here. I can happily zoom in and out, but trust me, these are just down here. So in this instance, it's going to be, and I will actually change it around because it is the Persians going first. Again, please hit the like button, please share as well. Please check out the comments, please let me know what your thoughts are, and obviously share it, make it a community. And finally, please ensure you check out that description where you'll find various things such as a Patreon link where you can help support the channel, as well as Instagram with over 2,100 photos at the time of recording. So this is a game which has various phases. There are operations phases and stuff like that. Ultimately, you are going to have some resources. You're going to have 12 money, 12 talents to spend. I like preferring to call it money because talents is quite confusing. And the amount that you have to spend, again, there's no little kind of cheat sheet. You've got to go to the rule book, which you'll start remembering, which is a card will cost you 1 talent, an army will cost you 1, a fleet will cost you 2. You could play with a single one, maybe depending on how it goes. I'll tell you how the last game went. And you can build a pontoon bridge for 6. You can have a maximum of 6 cards. You can have a no limit to have armies, and fleets you can only have 2 per preparation. Whereas the Spartans, the Greeks, the red player, they have 1/1/1, and they can maximum 6 cards, no limit to armies, and 2 fleets. So let's say I can take some cards. Now, we may or may not draw a certain card. Let's see if it happens. I'm going to start populating where I'm at. So I've got a city here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But remember, it costs an extra 1, so it costs 2 for these. 4 cards. Now you look at the cards, and I can't believe it. This is the only card in it that can occur. This is sudden death. You immediately end this round of phase, and you do scoring. Now that's because basically in the real life this did happen. There's a sudden death of the Great King, which means you take one of your army cubes and it goes on Darius. Of course, you saw I shuffled it pretty thoroughly. I did not know that this card was going to come up, but it is something I'll definitely be talking to you about. And this basically ends one campaign. So anyway, it's quite a good time to crack on with the rest of the rules. One campaign has occurred. It happened to be whoever's the victor. Presently, let's have a look at the cities they're controlling. So they're worth 2 points for a major city, which have these kind of vases next to them. There is a technical term, but I'm just going to call them vases. So this currently has 2 points, 4 points against 2 points, 4 points, 5 points. They currently have more, so they get one, well, not a victory point, but one way closer to an immediate win, which is if they reach 6. So that's one way they can win the game, and that's probably the most easiest way of explaining it. Over 5 rounds, see if that can happen, if you can't do anything else meanwhile. So that end of the first round, so you go on to phase 2, you take all your cards, you take your discard pile, you shuffle them up, you go again. Remember, it's always the Persians, the blue player, who goes first. And now we're cracking on with doing some more stuff. So I'm going to take another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And of course the risk here is you don't necessarily want to draw that card, because if you draw that card, well, let's see if it happens again. Nope, 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 we're fine. So now you can allow the other player to go. Yep, and they only have 12 points they can play with. Sorry, we only have 12, they only have 6. If you ever want at the end of a campaign, you can actually, if you hadn't had the Death of the King card, you can actually keep a card back, but you're only going to have 10 talents spent next round. So now it's their turn, they've got 6 to spend. Well, they're going to bring out another 2, maybe to compete with this. 4, that's the most they can bring out for now. 5, 6, and they're going to start controlling more things. The more they control, well, of course, this means they're having a better chance because they're controlling more places. So I start. Remember, it's the blue team, the Persians, who start. And I can look through my things. You're only reading the relevant bit for who you are. So discard as many cards as you wish, including this card, and draw the same. If you draw it, though, of course, the king question dies. So that's, of course, good. That's a risk. Choose one city that's not controlled by either player. Place one Persian army there from your reserve. Well, that's a great thing to play. Not playable as an event. You may keep this card to prevent the Greek player from getting support from Syracuse. So Syracuse is, well, that's just a bit of information about it. Neither side scores points for Athens during this expedition. So currently we have Athens, again, here's Athens, so that's really good. So I think that could be really good. But what, as you'll see, is they'll react to that. They'll just move their armies out, and I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to build the bridge. I can't build a bridge because I've already spent all my money. So I'm going to choose to move. If you want to move, you are going to discard a card and move instead as far as you like. But of course, I haven't got a pontoon, so I might have to move with an army. I am going to move with an army, and I'm going to just get rid of one of these cards, probably the one whereby I don't want to risk drawing up an army. So I'm going to discard a card off to the side of the board there. And in this instance, what we're going to do is move 1, 2, 3. You can move as much as you like, up to as many as 3. So I'm going to bring 3 over here, and now they're there. So there's a bit more stuff going on. And now it's their turn. So maybe they hadn't drawn cards, maybe they had. In fact, they happened to bolster. They're just going to move things out. So they're going to move. You can't drop off along the way. They're going to move 2 here. The reason for going there is it's stopping me from getting past, because you can't go as far as you like. You can only go as far as the next army is. So we have had the Persians player, the Spartans, take their turn. It's back to me. I've got, of course, this Athene thing, which I'm thinking of doing, but I don't want to play it yet. I want to let them burn through stuff. They couldn't have moved because they had no card to play. So that's it. They could pass, and then I can play. They could then come back and have another turn, but they cannot because they don't have any cards. So cards are very important. And finally, if I pass and they pass, so 2 consecutive turns of passing, that'll end the round as well. So hopefully this is quite strong. So neither side scores for Athens, so I'm going to play that. And so we lose all these things here. So, sorry, they're there, but we're not going to score it. So they're only controlling 2. We're controlling 3. We've then got other things. So choose one city not controlled by either side, place one Persian army there. So from my reserve, let's just stick it there. Do you know what? I might stick it further. Let's stick it here for now. And so that's that played. And then we have not playable as an event. You may keep this card to prevent the Greek player from getting support. So I'm going to choose to play that card as movement and just move one of them here. So now let's look up and see what the state of play is, because I'm now, well, they've passed, I'm going to pass now. So now they've got 2, 3, 4, 5, because these are major cities, against 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the difference is 3, so that was on 1, so it moves across. And that is the second campaign. On to campaign 3, we'll just see if I happen to draw them up. Let's say my entire 12 budget, well, I'm going to spend 6 to build that and draw 6 cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do I get sudden death? 1, yes I do. So now I immediately lose the round, so immediately you just score up what the difference is. In this instance, remember it was 7 against 5, I think it was. I hopefully I calculated that correct last round. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. This alone, by the way, does not control it. So 7 against 5, that's different to 2. I think I did that wrong. I'm now up to there. This happens. Xerxes the first happened, it was assassinated, I believe. And then from now on, if ever we draw this card, that sudden death card, and I happen, as the Persians have it, it doesn't have any effect. So there's a bit of a wariness going on there. And I lost the last game, and this point they only won by a single point because I drew in round 4, my first sudden death card, and in round 5 I drew it again. Very interesting balanced game. Other players, including myself, think this is a good game. I give this a very good rating. I'll tell you about some niggly bits as well though. So my current rating is 7.5. It is very finely balanced. It isn't always apparent until you play. It's a quick game to play. It does say 30 to 40 minutes on the box, and including explaining the game, it was under 30 minutes, so that's really good to know. Aside from that, it's interesting. The box looks quite digital art and stuff like this, and yet you've got quite this obviously historical looking map. If you were to walk past this on a table, I don't know how appealing I would make that look. I'm not saying it has to be snazzy and have cartoons and stuff like that, but people, if they're into your war games, I think this is kind of what you're going to be expecting. It's going to look something like this, and that's what you're going to have to play with. Like I said, it's very close, really managing that budget. Another annoying thing is there's no way of actually counting how much money you have. You just have to count out and do it like that. As you see, it wasn't that difficult. You're just taking it on your turn, but it is something you have to be aware of. So just be aware that you have to keep an eye on that. As you keep playing the game, you're going to start using some of these cards. You're going to start realizing someone might have the card which deals with getting rid of people out of Athens. There's another card, Two of Thieves, which might come up. So there's a few things you do need to be familiar with. I say that, I've played equal amount of times the person I'm playing this with, and it hasn't been a factor. But of course, you always have that slight paranoia about, oh, do they have that card? I can do it. And of course, this is very important, do they then play a card to stop you from doing something, to like react to you, like, ha, you've done that, I'm doing this. But then suddenly they can't move. And if you've controlled more movement places, you know, you're controlling more areas, well, then of course you're going to benefit anyway. So there's a few things to be aware of. Of course, the last thing I didn't talk about is combat. You happen to be here, they're there, you move in. Doesn't matter how many troops, if it's more than 3, you're going to be rolling. Now, the Spartans and the Greeks are really well trained, and they're always going to hit on anything. So they roll a 6, whatever it is, they are always going to keep that value. Okay, so if they have a 5, they play with a 5. If the highest value is a 6, they're playing with a 6. But with the Persians, your highest value is always a 4, and that's because they're weaker. So the Persians are not as good, and whenever they have to fight, they always fight with a 4. So if you roll a 6, you're always fighting with a 4. And that means if you come up against a 6, then you are going to, of course, lose. Now, one thing I will show you is if you happen to have 2 cubes and they've got 1, and then you've lost, then you go down to 1 cube. But if they only have 1 army, they're only rolling 1 die anyway. And then suddenly if you're down to 1 each, when you keep on rolling, and therefore it's going to be, if they had a 5 and you had a 3, then of course it's going to be the red team, the Spartans and Greeks, who win. Lastly, if you're in your home places, then you actually have a better chance. You actually have a higher skill set, because I guess you're not as fatigued like other things, and you're going to hit on a 5. So if you happen to have a 6, it's only going to count as a 5 here. So you're only, 17%, worse off than over here, whereby you're 33% worse off, because whatever you roll, if you roll a 5, then you're going to only be able to hit on a 4. That means you're having to rely on, of course, them rolling lower than a 4. If you both roll the same value, So if you rolled a 6, or so if you rolled a 4 and you rolled, well, of course, a 5 over here, that's only going to be worth a 4, and therefore you're both going to lose an army each. If at any time there's still armies left, and say you've got 3 against 2, you lose 1, you're down to 1, you can retreat, so you're going to move back to another place. So that is something you can be aware of you can do. So again, that has been the game 300. It's one of about 45 asymmetrical games I've played. There are some games which are asymmetrical, which some people don't think necessarily are. This is definitely asymmetrical, but sometimes just a game with a different win condition might people consider that to be, you know, an asymmetrical game. So if you're interested in that, there will be a playlist going up. I don't think I'm going to wait till 50, but maybe I will find other things. I'm trying to keep it to games that I've actually have played. I know 50 is a nice handy number though. Aside from that, it's a nice portable box, small game. It is easy to teach, but it's a very text-heavy rule book. There are some pictures, but I find the pictures are placed in the place which I personally would prefer to be better placed. I also think there could be better summaries. They do over-explain some things, but like Invasion of the Brood rulebook, that was around 40 pages, and it was just, please, you know, sometimes when you over-explain something, you actually lose a lot of content, and it's hard to focus. I've definitely been distracted a few times reading this, but actually, as with many games, sometimes it's getting out and playing it is actually the easiest way of doing it. A nice thin game, as I said, it is portable, and I think it's effective. So if you want to check this out, like I said, that's currently what I am giving this game. Aside from that, for some reason, this isn't closing fully, and I'm not sure why that is. So let's just see if we can keep an eye on that. That is magnetic, and that should close on there, but it doesn't seem like it wants to, unless it goes on the inside. Something is going on here. So we're having some strange issues with it not closing. It looks like it's bulging. So it turns out there's another tiny flaw, which is if you don't have pieces flat enough, there we go, it's working. So watch out for that as well. There's Paris, which you also might have seen recently on the channel, also an issue. The first time I've seen that like that, so the small bags are a bit too small perhaps. So that's 300 Earth and Water.